Hello and welcome to Game Theory. I'm your host, Sam Vecenie. Today, Bryce Simon is here with me, and it's time, with all of these college basketball events kicking off over the weekend, we're going to do a 2025 NBA mock draft. But first, let's hit the music.
They do have a timeout. Decide not to use it. Way downtown.
Bang! Bang! What is this going to be? Wow! Are you kidding me?
Hello and welcome to the Game Theory Podcast. I'm your host, Sam Vecenie. But if you watch the tape, what you will see completely orchestrated this game. Bryce, what's going on, buddy?
What's up, Sam? NBA is back. I'll have a Detroit Pistons preseason game to watch as soon as we get done recording. NBA draft season is back, as we're going to get into on this episode. High school football, my team got a win on Friday. Our team got a win on Friday. Yesterday was me and my wife's 11-year anniversary, and today is my father's birthday. Like, there's just a lot going on, but it's all good.
A lot of stuff here. I love it. This is amazing. This is fantastic. Congrats to everything that's going on, particularly anniversary. That's always good. Yeah. 11 years is fantastic. So yeah, we're going to do a 2025 NBA mock draft today. We're not going to talk about any of the NBA news that's happened. Like, we're not going to dive into any of that to start. We are literally just going to talk about mock drafting. That's it. So before we do that, I will ask you generally, what is your overall thought on this 2025 NBA draft as we head into the process?
So I feel like it's almost an inverse of last year's class, where we had trouble at the top. And then we're like, you know what? There's some decent value, 5 to 15. And then, I don't really know after that. I feel like where I'm at right now is, I think regardless of which one of us goes first, I think our top 5 is probably going to be close to similar. Yeah. Then I'm not saying the talent is bad, 6 to 15. I just have no stinking clue who goes where and all of that. And then I like a lot of names in the later 20s right now. And that may change because some of those guys will jump into the lottery and some of them won't be as good as I thought. I'm not saying it's got crazy depth in this class. I'm just saying, as I looked at this, I think where I'm going to struggle today is 6 to 20. Those are the names I'm going to be least confident in, as opposed to the top 5. And then like 21 through 30, I'm going to feel pretty good about like not sounding like an idiot whenever I talk about those guys in that kind of end of first, top of second range.
To be honest with you, I feel somewhat similarly in terms of the top. I think this top group is fantastic. It's a really, really good top group. I do wonder if we have slightly, very, very, very slightly overstated it a touch, just in terms of who these guys are. I think they're all very, very fantastic players. And I think that particularly there's one guy who I think has like an immense ceiling if things really come together outside of Cooper. Cooper is his own deal. Cooper is, to me, the guy, and we'll talk about him in a second. But there's another guy there where I'm like, okay, if this comes together, like I can see the vision here for.
Okay, that'll be interesting because I have one of those as well. So I'm interested to see if it's the same guy for both of us.
There are a few guys beyond that I feel pretty good about right now. And I don't think that they are the consensus on who people feel good about, to be honest with you. And then after that, even into the 20s, man, like it gets hard for me. Yeah. Like we're just early in the process. Obviously, guys are going to emerge. We're going to get to see some of the college players, how they improved over the course of the season. We're going to get to see some of the guys over in Europe or guys over here in Australia, right, that have in some way, shape, or form improved their game over the course of their seasons. So in the off season, obviously. So I am intrigued by all of this. I'm intrigued by this draft process, but as of right now, I would say that I feel great about the top group. I feel much less great right now about anything beyond that, to the point where I think it's probably a normal draft, right? It's probably been overstated that this is like some crazy super draft or anything. I think that the top group is amazing and terrific. I think the rest of it is a question in some respect.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. And I'll be whenever I'm talking about like the end of the first round, it's a lot of returning guys who, yeah, quite honestly, I had towards the end of the first round last year, and they obviously didn't stay in the draft, but they're just college guys for the most part who I'm like, I think these guys are NBA players. So having not even seen them yet, either in their second or third year, whatever they are, I feel comfortable considering them to be potential first round picks on October 6th. Some of the names we're going to say in the lottery, like, I think this is what they're going to be, but I wouldn't be shocked if that's not what they end up being at all. And it looks completely foolish.
I feel quite confident we will say 1 or 2 names in the lottery that do not end up in this draft.
I think I agree with that as well.
Yeah. It's just the reality of how open this thing is right now. At this early stage, it is October 6th, 2024. We have all the way until the end of June in 2025 to be able to figure out who these guys are. So just keep that in mind, everybody, as we kind of go through this whole thing. Anything else that you got to get off your chest about this draft before we start doing this thing?
No, I'm excited to do it. I'm excited to hash it out, to see where you're at. Like, we don't share big boards. We do it at some point. We talk about it, but we haven't right now. And so this is kind of my first chance to see where you're at on some guys. It'll be your first chance to see where I'm at on some guys. I always feel like I learn a lot whenever we, do these exercises, and then even getting feedback from people in a multitude of areas. People I respect in the scouting industry, in the media side, the non-media side, everywhere. It's always fun to get the feedback after doing episodes like this.
See, I'm just excited to get the feedback from the agents that will call me immediately after this goes live. It's going to be great.
I don't have that problem as it stands right now. There's a few trainers, there's a few, but I do not envy your position when it comes to that. So,
okay. So 2 things to do, just some house cleaning before we get going here. First, the Game Theory social media channels. Go follow over on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok at Game Theory Sam V, GameTheory SAMV. That is your handle to get all of the new Game Theory content that goes up. Andrew does a great job of posting some social clips from shows. As the season actually progresses, I will start talking about basketball on there at some point, probably do a video breaking down hoops at some point. If there's something exciting that happens at night, right? You'll be able to find me there at times. Okay. Second, I'm doing some breakdowns over on the YouTube channel right now. So I've got Alex Tui up. He has been really, really good so far for the Sydney Kings, to the point where his name will come up tonight as we're talking through and breaking down prospects. I'm really intrigued with what he can be. You can learn what you need to know about Alex Tui and his NBA draft prospects over on the Game Theory YouTube channel. Hit the subscribe button. You won't miss any of those videos. I'm also going to do one on Rocco Zakarski. Yes. I'm guessing Rocco will come up at some point tonight as well. Rocco is a really interesting 7'3" big man. As you see, whenever I break down his game, a lot of things going on there early on in his career. He's still just 18 years old. He is definitely a work in progress. It is totally okay. Right. Finally, subscribe to the Game Theory YouTube channel. Just Game Theory Podcast with Sam Vecenie. That is your best place to be able to know where all of the upcoming content is going to land. I'm probably going to do a couple of rookie breakdowns in preseason. I got the itch a little bit watching the Rob Dillingham game.
Yeah.
Because Dillingham's offense was really good. His defense was quite poor. It was a lot of what we have expected from Rob Dillingham entering the NBA, and that's kind of an exciting thing to talk about. So I will have some breakdowns over on the YouTube channel. And at some point this week, I will also, over at The Athletic, have a full-scale mock draft that is more predictive as opposed to what Bryce and I are doing and what we think is the, way that the Bryce and I mock draft is going to look different than what the predictive mock draft I think is going to look like at the end of the day.
Yep.
Okay. That's all I've got. Are you ready to start drafting?
Let's do it.
Okay. So here I have a Pittsburgh coaster.
Okay.
Heads will be the image of the skyline. Tails will just be the backside. Call it in the air.
Skyline.
Landed you know, on the other side.
Other side.
Unfortunately. So I'm going to go number 1 just because I want to talk about Cooper, if we're being completely honest.
Sure.
So we will do that. You will go number 2 for people who've not watched these before or listened to them on the podcast feed. Bryce and I go back and forth. I will go 1, he will go 2. I will go 3, Bryce will go 4. I'll go 5, Bryce will go 6, all the way down through 30. All right. I am ready to do this. Given that we are so early in the process, games have not been played yet. We're not doing this for teams at the end of the day. It's just doesn't seem all that valuable. Okay. The first overall pick in this 2025 NBA mock draft is going to be Cooper Flagg.
Yep.
Cooper Flagg to me is one of the most interesting prospects that I've gotten a chance to evaluate, especially given his age. He's always been a guy that has just played up in competition, right? You go back to the U17 tournament when he was 15 years old and like dominated the Spanish national team with Ethan Almanza and those guys. And I think Ade Mara was on that team. And they had a number of guys that have turned out to be like at least semi-interesting NBA draft prospects. Cooper Flagg's ability to impact the game defensively is just like completely absurd for somebody who is this young. And it has always been so absurd. He is, to me, probably the first non-center in a while where I felt like he has legitimate defensive player of the year upside if things really broke right for him in regard to his development over the course of the next, 5 years. Obviously, Victor Wembanyama is going to win a number of these. Maybe Victor misses a season here or there. Cooper ends up stepping up. I don't think he has quite as big of a defensive ceiling as Victor Wembanyama does, but his motor, his aggression, his just genuine awareness and activity level, his motor is unbelievable on defense. His rebounding ability is fantastic. He reads the court incredibly well. He's an unbelievable defensive playmaker. First and foremost, he's a great transition player. He creates transition opportunities just through his sheer presence on the court. Offensively, I love his passing ability. I think he's developing as a big wing. I don't even know that I would say initiator yet, but I think he's developing as like a big wing scorer who can create shots off the bounce. He's not as polished in terms of his footwork and handle and touch as maybe somebody else that we'll talk about here in a minute or two. But I think that his ability to handle the ball, get downhill, and create situations where once he has an advantage, he's going to finish plays is very real. I also really like the passing ability. I think that he is a really high level passer, sees the court incredibly well, understands where he needs to go, cuts really well off the ball. Like he's going to get 12 points per game this season just by getting out in transition, offensive rebounding, and cutting off the ball. The rest of it, like he might average way more than that. That'll be where the self-creation comes in, and that'll be where, hopefully the rest of his game develops and continues to grow and mature over the course of the next year. But Cooper Flagg is going to be a guy that can really, really, really score off the ball just through his sheer activity level early on. And that's kind of where I want to finish this with Cooper, right? Cooper's competitiveness and motor is unlike anything I've seen from a 17-year-old entering college basketball. He's not going to turn 18 until December, I believe.
December 21st. Yep.
Which means he will play a semi-decent portion of his first NBA season at 18 years old, which is completely ridiculous. And he's going to step in, and I think he's going to play well early on in his NBA career just because of that motor, that energy, that aggression, that just sheer willpower that he has to impact the game through playing hard and being constantly mentally engaged in the game. I don't know if I've seen somebody this young that there's just not a second off when he's on the court. He doesn't have an off switch point blank when he's out there. So that's where I'm at on Cooper to start this thing. Bryce, what are your takes on Cooper Flagg?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to like just repeat things that you said, but
Yeah.
I think the immediate thing that came up to me or with him is just this intersection of size, skill, feel, and athleticism. And you mentioned all of what that ends up being on the defensive end. And then it obviously can be very impactful on the offensive end as well. I'm glad you brought up the passing because I do think he's a good passer as well. The only like question I would throw to you is I agree with everything you said. Do you think Cooper Flagg ends up being like the hub primary person
Yeah.
of an offense? Or is he like the number 2 and it's still okay for him to be the number 1 pick because he's so impactful defensively and all of that? Like, to me, that's what's holding back from people like throwing around crazy thoughts about Cooper is
Yes.
I think
Yes.
people are a little bit hesitant to say like, this is your elite 2-way wing who's your leading scorer on offense and the, all defense level defender.
I'm always going to feel best with Cooper on the court with like a real scoring guard, I think is where I'm at. Having said that, I think he can get there. Like
Sure.
he's still so young. That's the thing that like we really, really do not. I don't think we talk about enough with Cooper Flagg yet. Like he is 17 right now, not going to turn 18 until December. And he's pretty developed there already. Like for me, the question is what level does the shot get to as much as anything? Like in terms of like the ability off the bounce, the shooting off the bounce, I kind of like that he has the ability to like realign himself in midair. Like he'll take wrong footed jumpers and, really elevate into them and like twist his body to get his elbow and to get his balance and alignment with the basket already. That's like a big kind of indicator that I look for in terms of comfort creating shots, right? Like arguably, I would say very, very few people in last year's draft really had that ability. I do think Cooper has that off the bounce a little bit already. When you see those flashes, you think, okay, this can grow. This is where we can kind of look at as a jumping off point for Cooper. But I don't know that right now he's not a finished product in that regard.
Yeah.
And really like the jumper is another question too. Obviously the jumper looks kind of funky in terms of the mechanics. Like he kind of brings it off of his shoulder a little bit. Like Cooper Flagg is not a perfect prospect by any stretch of the imagination. Like anybody that's saying that he is this guy who's going to come in and just like immediately be a number 1 option on an NBA team. That's not the reality of where Cooper is. But to me, he is an unbelievably high-end prospect because of that competitiveness motor. And frankly, just like the mentality that he brings to your team through his sheer presence, he just elevates your level every time he's out there because of how tough he is, how competitive he is, and how hard he plays.
Yep. No, I agree. Like I said, it just it's almost unfair because he hasn't played a college second yet, but you're already getting into the nitpicky things of his game, but that's what happens when you're talking about the potential number 1 overall pick and all of the things that come with that. I don't disagree with anything you said. That's just like, if I have quote unquote questions, it's how good can the jumper be? Maybe it's not even be the primary guy for large stretches, but can he take over games at the end of games for Duke this year? Like those are the type of things I'll look for just to see how high the ceiling is. But as you mentioned, even if he doesn't, he's going to play the first 2 months of the season at 17 years old this year in college. So even if there's still plenty of room for improvement.
Yeah. Okay. Number 2, you are up, Bryce.
Yeah, I'm going to go Ace Bailey here. So this is where I'm interested if you and I are in the same boat or not. Ace Bailey, just turned 18 back in August. So we'll play his entire, freshman season at Rutgers at 18 years old. I'm super intrigued by his size, his body type, the versatility he could offer. I love watching the variety of shots he took off the dribble, off movement, different platforms. I know maybe you watch that. Maybe it's not as efficient as you want sometimes, but just seeing a guy that was able to get those shots, he's able to rise above double teams and all of that. Like he could rise up over that. I think his handle is loose at times. He has to tighten that, but he has great elevation. He can play on or off the ball. And then defensively, he has really good length in that ground coverage we often talk about, Sam. I could see him communicating defensively. That's something we talked about recently as we were breaking somebody's game down. I think there's some, detailed things where he has to be a little bit more locked in, especially off the ball, and really learn to be like that true two-way wing. But whenever I look at today's NBA and what can really be impactful, having a two-way wing that I think Ace Bailey could be, that's just an archetype that's really, really intriguing to me. So I feel very comfortable right now taking him at number 2.
So I also have Ace Bailey at number 2.
Okay.
I will say that as well. So anybody that's watching on YouTube, as you'll see, I have a nice little graphic that we're going to do here where we will update as we go along, and we'll read through this thing as we get more than 2 picks deep. Okay. So when I watch Ace Bailey, I come away thinking at times this is like a very real contender for the number 1 pick.
Yeah.
Even on that level of Cooper Flagg. And at other times, I come away maddeningly frustrated with how he doesn't always play up to what I think his athletic tools allow him to. Everything for Ace Bailey, when I watch him on offense, seems harder than it has to be.
That's fair.
I think is what I would say. Having said that, there are so few players that I can think of at this age, which, by the way, Ace Bailey, literally, I think just turned 18 2 months ago. So not that much younger, or not that much older, I'm sorry, than Cooper Flagg. I can think of the number of wings that have real NBA size, like 6'8" and above, that could get to their pull-up jumper and like make pull-up jumpers from the mid-range, from 3, at the level that Ace Bailey does on like one hand, probably. Like I thought Jason Tatum was pretty developed in this regard coming into Duke, but you just look at it like his footwork getting into these shots, like his unbelievable rhythm and balance, like through his handle, right? He has these disgusting like hang dribbles into quick crossovers. Like has these long strides where he's covering ground, like getting forward, and then he'll like stop on a dime, get to a step back. And because he's like 6'9", he has this crazy elevation and crazy high release points where it's just really hard to bother his shot. Right. I loved when his teams would like use him in kind of mid post situations.
Yeah. Yes.
To me, it felt like that was like a really good use of his ability where, okay, I'm just going to catch and I'm going to elevate over the top, right? Like he has like honestly, like some pretty nasty, like Dirk Nowitzki style, like one-legged fadeaways where he'll use his right leg as like a little shield to be able to create even more separation from time to time. I think he'll hit catch and shoot shots. I think when he decides to drive, he's pretty good. Like for me, I would love to see Rutgers get him the ball a little bit more on the move, maybe, than what, some of his, McCarron at the high school level, his AAU team, etc. Like I would like to see him get the ball like on the move off of dribble handoffs a little bit more. Like, hey, I'm in the wing, I'm coming down like off of a screen, or I'm in the corner, I'm coming down off the screen at the wing, and I'm taking a dribble handoff at the top of the key, and I'm getting things going off the move a little bit more, because I think that that's where he can hopefully attack a little bit more. That's the thing with me, because again, it just feels very difficult every time I watch him. And I can't tell how much of it is a mindset thing or a handle thing. Because you mentioned that the handle can be quite loose. The handle is very creative.
Yeah.
And like the footwork is very polished. I wouldn't say he is a bad handle.
Agreed.
It's just that he's very big and he's very loose with the ball right now. It was funny. I was talking to Keandre over at Hoop Intellect, who I'm going to have on the show here soon. And, I mentioned to him, I was like, hey, like when you watch Ace, like, do you feel like he's just very upright and very tall and that the handle's very loose, and that's why he's kind of struggling to get places, right? And he mentioned that, and the name he brought up to me actually was Brandon Ingram in a lot of ways.
Sure.
And that actually, to me, that was a really good name. I thought Keandre was like dead on when he said that. I was like, this does remind me a lot of Brandon Ingram when I watch it, because you can even see at times too with Brandon, the passing flashes, right? Some of Brandon's passing flashes when he was younger were really, really high level. I see that with Ace sometimes too. It's just that his mentality isn't always there with it. I will say I think Ace is a slightly better prospect than somebody like Brandon Ingram, because Brandon was so painfully skinny when he got to the NBA, and it was just going to take so long for him to fill out his frame. I think that Ace is just a level ahead in terms of explosiveness, in terms of where his frame is. And Brandon Ingram went number 2 overall in that draft, and it's turned out to be an all-star and has had a great career. And I'm saying that I think Ace Bailey has more in him than that. Like, I think he is a better prospect long-term than Brandon Ingram. So yeah, to me, this is the number 2 player. But it's not without questions, just because things tend to be very difficult for Ace, because almost everything to me feels like either I'm out in transition and I'm showcasing my explosiveness that way, or I am, getting to a mid-range jumper, and that's a little bit worrisome to me.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. I don't think these guys are one for one at all, but it reminded me a little bit of when I scouted Brandon Miller out of high school and didn't value just like the ability of a wing to go get buckets. And then, I completely undervalued him all the way through the process. And so I just feel like as I watch Ace, I'm like, this is a skill set and an archetype that is very valuable if it hits. And because of that,
yes,
you mentioned it at the top where it's, you watch him sometimes and you think, man, maybe he could compete for number 1. I would probably be more willing to have that conversation than most, because that's kind of how high I am on Ace Bailey right now. It's not a knock on Cooper. I think it's just, I'm probably about as high as you could be on what Ace is. And especially considering the archetype and the potential role and the value that adds to an NBA team.
People like to throw around the Paul George comparison for prospects kind of all the time.
Yeah.
Anybody that comes up in this like bigger wing, kind of mold in that way, I feel like it's comped to Paul George in some respect. Brandon Miller, another guy.
Yeah.
Brandon brought the comparison on himself because that's a guy that he really loves and respects as a player. Ace is the first one in a while where I've seen the like explosiveness and shot making intersection. Whereas like with Brandon, like Brandon isn't this nuclear athlete, right? He is a smooth athlete who can change paces and is very functional. But like Ace has like real pop in the way that Paul George, especially when he's younger, had like serious pop.
Yep.
So yeah, I would have Ace at number 2.
I have Paul George in my notes, but I wasn't willing to say it until I saw him on an actual basketball floor in college. But that's definitely a name that, now publicly, but privately, I had written in my notes, like this could potentially be a comp I use down the road.
Yep. Okay. Number 3 for me is Dylan Harper.
Okay.
At Rutgers. So why Harper over the other 2 guards here that you could reasonably say in VJ Edgecombe or Nolan Traore, right? I like Harper's size. Dylan Harper is something like 6'6", seems to have pretty real length. Haven't gotten like a wingspan measurement there yet, but he seems like he has some length. I love the way he uses his frame. I love his footwork. I love how creative he is off the bounce. I think his handle is just a significant level ahead of VJ Edgecombe, especially. And I would say like a level ahead of where Traore is right now as well for me. I think just his creativity, his pickups, the way that he reacts to defenders in the way that they defend him is the big thing for me. He is very, very capable of, okay, I see a defender leaning this way. I'm going to cross him to get him leaning back that way and having to overcommit. And then I'm going to like spin back. And he's stringing together multiple moves in a way that a couple of the other guards in this class, I think, sometimes don't always do. They have flashes of it, whereas Harper, to me, does it with a lot more regularity than what those guys do. As a pull-up shooter, I trust him more than Traore and Edgecombe right now. I would say Edgecombe's catch and shoot ability is a level ahead of where Harper's is right now. But if you give me the option, by and large, if I think that the prospects are close, I'm probably going to take the bigger guard. And the other piece of this is VJ is a fantastic defender. Traore, I think, has moments of being like a really good point of attack defender. Harper, I think, as well, is like super competitive and tough and like really, really wants to defend. All three of these guards, I think, aren't going to be question marks on the defensive end. Like, I think they're all going to be pretty good. For me, it does come down to the offense. The question with Dylan is the explosiveness. He's just not super bouncy. He's not all that quick. He is a lot more of a technician. I just think he's so capable of being that technician that I kind of think it's going to work at the end of the day.
Yeah. So the first thing that I wrote in his overall size and build definitely stands out. Like, it immediately kind of pops off, especially when you're talking about a guard can play with the ball in his hands. Again, not to repeat things. One thing I do think that is creative with his handle, he has some really fun secondary defender navigation dribbles. So when I say secondary defender, I'm talking about like he comes off a ball screen and then the guy in the, in the gap comes over and he's able to navigate that guy, where most players will have to pick that up and then they're caught, without their dribble. Now he's able to navigate that guy, or in transition, wherever it is. He's really fun with that. And then I wanted to talk about the defense, because I think due to his size and strength, he could be impactful on that end. I watched a game where like he was the one defending Cam Boozer in that game. He was taking that matchup. He had a really fun strong side stunt and recover, has an on-ball possession where he gave second effort after getting hung up on a ball screen. So I like seeing those multiple efforts, because as you increase levels, you're going to get beat defensively, Sam. You're not going to stay in front of guys all the time. So seeing a high school kid already kind of understanding that was really impactful to me.
Yeah, I think that is a really, really good point in terms of just like understanding. Look, his dad is Ron Harper. Ron Harper Jr. played in the NBA. Like, it makes sense to me that he has some maybe advanced understanding in those circumstances that some other guys may not entering college, right? I'm trying to think anything else here I've got on Dylan Harper. The passing. Actually, that is one thing that we do have to talk about. I think he's an outstanding passer when he puts his mind to it. You can go back. What was it? Was it the U16 Americas off the top of my head? That sounds right. Where like he really played as more of a distributor. Like, that was by and large where he like really, really decided to, okay, I'm not the scoring guard on this team. I am the playmaker. I am the one setting the table for everybody. And I thought he was outstanding there. Really has great vision, can throw cross corner kickouts, great lob, understands the pace to put on the ball as a passer as well, throws them with zip, throws them with touch. I think his passing ability probably has gone a little bit underrated so far within his draft profile. I am a big fan of what I've seen from Dylan Harper.
Yeah, I had some questions about it early when I watched film, and then whenever I rounded back to him and watched it again, my notes kind of changed in terms of how I felt about that. And what will be cool for him is he's playing with the guy we took number 2 in Ace Bailey, so he'll be able to show NBA teams he understands how to get the primary scorer the ball in his spot. So if Ace wants to get in the mid post, can Dylan get the ball to him without getting deflected, or can he read the secondary defender that's coming to double, and can he get him off movement, and all of the things we mentioned with Ace? Dylan will have the chance to showcase that he can do those things with a big time scorer playing off of him.
Well, and one thing I can, kind of mention from having talked to people that have been through to Rutgers practice just very, very early, right, is the thing that they've come away and have said is that his passing looks quite good already. Like he is kind of making that effort where he's going to be the primary playmaker for this group. So that's exciting as well. Yep. Okay. You're up at number 4, Bryce.
Yep. I'm going to take VJ Edgecombe here. He's a little older, right? Compared to the guys we've talked about thus far. He is already 19 years old. He turned 19 in July. What are we giving VJ? 6'5"? 6'5" off-ball player?
We are not giving him 6'5".
Okay, what are we giving VJ?
I will tell people that now. Having seen him like in person at Hoop Summit, I'm gonna say he's 6'3".
Wow. Okay, so this is the stuff that you get a little bit more insight than I have. That definitely changes things. Well, I'll keep it here. I look at him as an off-the-ball
for what it's worth too. Like, I've seen some listings of Traore at 6'5".
Okay,
Traore is also not 6'5".
Yeah, let me check my notes. Yeah, so in my notes, I actually have him at 6'3" in my notes here. VJ, I had at 6'5", so I'm not sure where I pulled that from, but obviously updating that now.
I can tell where you pulled it from. You pulled it from Hoop Summit, where originally they listed him at 6'5", and then they adjusted it back.
Got you. But yeah, off the ball, bucket getter, he can play with the ball in his hands a little bit. It's funny. I already had in my notes, I wish he was a little taller. So, the fact that him going to 6'3", I think this is going to be a real conversation moving forward with him. The shooting numbers definitely pop, even off synergy. When you just look at those, I think the form is fluid and smooth. He's able to, get into it off the bounce a little bit, good elevation off the bounce, at least. The rim finishing, there was some questions there. He does have ridiculous bounce.
Yes.
He's a real twitchy athlete. I think, is that a fair word to use? Twitchy athlete.
Yes,
and then he can use that on the defensive end with big time defensive playmaking, chase down blocks and transition, those type of things. He just has to, with most of these guys, I don't like to dive into the defense too crazy at times, because we'll see whenever they really get locked in. But I think he has a chance to be impactful defense. I think you kind of mentioned that none of these guys we're talking about, which is kind of interesting, because we haven't talked about a guy that's played a college minute. I don't think the defensive end of the floor is a real worry for any of the guys we're going to talk about in the top 5, or at least not as a major negative, I guess.
Yeah, no, like with I would say Ace is the one where he is the one I have the most questions about. But he has all the tools to be a great defender.
Correct.
It's all just about consistently being engaged in Ace's case. And there are moments where you're just like, holy shit, he has incredible flashes defensively. And then there are other times where he just like misses rotations and you're a little bit disappointed. But with VJ particularly, I will say, like, VJ, I think, is an outstanding defensive player. Really has a chance to be a great defender. Uses his quickness incredibly well. He's probably like 185 pounds, I would guess, something like that. But it's kind of similar to Case and Wallace, where he gets his chest in front of you and it's really hard to go through his chest. He is very solid and strong there. Off the ball, I think that he really flies around. Like, he's super disruptive, does a great job on that end of just like scrambling around and wreaking havoc a little bit. For me, he's an off-ball scorer.
Yep.
Right.
Agreed. Yep.
The reason I say that is largely because of the handle. I would say the biggest worry I have with VJ Edgecombe in general is just the left hand. I can like say it as broadly as his left hand. It's just like the handle overall is quite rudimentary. Like, he's not really stringing together a lot of moves. He'll hit like one quick crossover, but he's not really a guy that has like counters for things that defenders present him at the moment, at least, right? Not like wildly advanced in ball screens where he's like, you watch Dylan Harper. Dylan Harper is just like, as soon as he gets a guy in jail, it's over, right? Nobody can go around him. He's so strong with his back. He's so strong through his hips. It's just really, really hard. And what VJ has that Dylan doesn't have is shiftiness, right? Like, Dylan has this incredible strength and great footwork and counters, but he's just not wildly shifty. VJ can be super shifty through his hips and can get wherever he wants on the court. It's just that the handle kind of lets him down right now. People will ask, like, okay, why can't he be a point guard then if he's 6'3"? To me right now, I don't think he could handle NBA level ball pressure, like up and down the court. Like, if you put Chris Dunn on him right now, as he tries to bring the ball up the court, he would really, really struggle with that ball pressure. Teams even kind of did it to him a little bit in high school, where they would like pressure him out at half court a little bit. And sometimes he'd get by and he'd throw down like a thunder stunk. Other times he'd turn the ball over because like the handle would just get a little bit loose with the left hand, right? I don't think he absorbs bumps on the perimeter when he's controlling the ball and handling the ball as well as he absorbs bumps defensively right now, if that makes sense. All of this just leads to he's kind of an off-ball scorer right now. And that's where I am curious about where it goes and where it falls.
No, and that's whenever he's 6'5", like whenever I was looking at him 6'5", I wasn't as concerned about that. Him being 6'3" is a little bit more concerning.
And by the way, I say that like without shoes. Like
Yeah.
we measure
Sure.
guys without shoes in the NBA now. I think he's probably like 6'3".
Yeah. But like he does have that real twitch and explosiveness, which is important. So I'm still comfortable with him here in my top 5.
Yeah.
We'll see how it plays out and how much that length ends up being an issue in terms of finishing at the rim and some of those type of things. And it could limit his versatility defensively, but now I'm really intrigued to see even more so what it looks like at the collegiate level at 6'3".
People might feel some type of way about this when I say this, but like if I told you were getting like a more explosive Cason Wallace,
sure,
like that'd be awesome to me. Like when I say that, like I mean that with love. Like that's a definite NBA starter, and if he can figure out the handle stuff in terms of being able to consistently make plays for his teammates and be able to, create more consistently by himself, that is like maybe an all-star level player given his level of explosiveness. We probably downplayed the athleticism. VJ Edgecombe is a disgusting athlete.
Yep.
He is unbelievable. Like the name that I, got a little bit at Hoop Summit was like, is this like Dwayne Wadey? And I was like, no, not from like a skill set perspective, but I understand why you would say that athletically, at least, because he has that kind of pop, that kind of like physicality, that twitch is there in that way. So I understand why that name came up, but he's just not there yet in terms of where the handle is, the creativity off the bounce, just things like that. Like Baylor to me is a perfect spot for him.
Yeah.
Because they have a number of guards that can deal with on-ball responsibilities, and he can be brought along slowly there.
Yep. Agreed.
Okay. Number 5, I'm going to go Nolan Traore.
Yep.
Traore's had, I would say, a fairly up and down start to his season for San Quintin. Started kind of poorly, had a couple of rough games. Recently has been quite good. He had 27 in a game last week. He had 20 and 10 today. He was very, very good. I watched like probably 15 minutes of that game today and thought he was what we had hoped he would be coming into the season. You do have to remember at times that he is a extremely young, 18-year-old player playing professional basketball. There are going to be ups and downs, right? There are going to be a whole lot of trials that he has to kind of work through and figure out. But man, when he's able to get downhill and he's able to get paint touches, he's such an excellent passer and playmaker. And also, I don't know that I would say he has like NBA caliber play finishing ability in any real respect yet. Sometimes the finishing is quite good, but if you look at his overall finishing numbers, they're like in the 50s or so. The floater game, the mid-range game, it's there sometimes. It's not there all the time. And the 3-point shot, it hit or miss for Traore right now. But he feels comfortable getting to all of those things and countering off of the way defenders play him to get to those shots, which to me, as he gets older and matures and grows, the fact that he can get to those shots comfortably now says to me at some point he's probably going to, whenever he gets stronger and more physical and more capable of absorbing contact, he's probably going to get better as things move on in terms of the finishing.
Yes. I think right now, I feel like he dribbles himself into trouble a little bit.
Yes.
Like it's one dribble too far into the lane, and then kind of understandably so, he doesn't always have the composure and the right decision-making to keep from throwing a pass that ends up in a turnover. I just like to see him either stop and play on 2 feet, be a little more patient, keep his dribble alive, and just dribble out of the trouble. But
yep.
I noticed that even before this international season. And then I saw it in the international play as well. So that is interesting.
Yep.
I love the way he plays with pace. At time, like I think that's very high level with him. Able to finish and attack with his left hand. What is the defense for you? We've talked about thinking that like defense wasn't a major concern for a lot of these guys in the top 5. How good do you think it can be for him?
I don't think he's ever going to be like a difference making defender is my read.
Okay.
just because it's really hard to be that as a guard. I do think he shows a ton of flashes of being a very high level defender, of being I can be like a good point of attack defender that bothers guards and frustrates them. I think he does like a pretty good job on the ball when he's locked in. I do think he gets clipped by screens a little bit too much, was my immediate reaction watching him. Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. Like I can see the vision for how he would be fine, but and there are moments where he's quite good, I think, but I don't know that I ever see like for his size, like Eric Bledsoe, all defense caliber guy or something like that.
Yep. No, I that's where I'm at as well. Like I definitely don't think right now I'm like thinking it's worried about it being a negative, but I didn't find it to be overwhelming positive at this point either. So
yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. The dribbling into traffic thing, that is real. I think whenever I watched his tape, I was quite frustrated, especially at the U18s this summer, right? Where that French team had like zero spacing around him. They would play a big who was like purely a rim running big. They would play Noah Essengay and Mohamed Diabate, neither of whom can shoot right now. We might talk about Essengay a little bit later. We'll see. But, it was just hard for him. It all felt very cramped when I watched that U18 French team. It didn't feel like what an NBA court would feel like for Traore in terms of the spacing. So I want to see more of what it looks like for him this year, I think.
Yep. I agree.
Okay. So that's our top 5. That is like, we expected to go longer on the top 5 because those are the guys that, people are really excited about. This is arguably where it gets more fun, though. Bryce is up at number 6.
Arguably is a really interesting word to use here. Arguably fun is an interesting way to describe it. I don't think you're going to like this one at all. Like I feel very confident you're going to crush me for this. But I just love this archetype of player right now. This could age really bad, but I'm going to go Common Malawash here at number 6.
I mean, I just don't like Common as much as other people, but I'm interested to hear the reasoning behind it.
Yeah. So to me, he's a big with length and athleticism, but could fit modern NBA eventually by stretching the floor. So I'm very much like, my negatives are going to be, I think, the reason why you don't like this at all. Because there's something we've talked about offline about other players, but I mean, like, there's back-to-back possessions in a game that showed the potential. He had a ridiculous lob catch on a pass that came from the 3-point line. And then the next possession, he actually spaces to the corner, knocks down a 3. So I think right now I'm on this kick of bigs that can do this, where they stretch the floor and they have that size, and then the defensive impact with his length and all of that. So there are some questions about all of that. In terms of, I even have some questions in the ball screen drop coverage and, the rebounding impact and some of those things. I think the biggest thing offensively, and I think this is where you'll probably really, is kind of the strength, especially his lower body and the hands. There were definitely times where the hands were concerning, even to me, and it definitely needs improvement. Where we haven't seen any of these guys play this year, I will bet on the upside, the talent, the archetype until I am proven that, like, hey, all of this stuff is still an issue.
So I saw Common at Hoop Summit for a week, right? I've watched a good amount of them at this point. I can't overemphasize enough how fucking big he is. Like, you think you understand how big he is? He is bigger than what you're thinking. Like, he looks enormous. His length, his height, like, he is every bit. Like, he feels 7'1", 7'2" with super long arms out there when you see him, and he moves well for the size. Like, he up and down the court, like, he can really run up and down the court and cover ground. I have Common more in the 20s right now.
Sure.
Because I honestly do not know if I saw him catch a ball on the move the entire week I was there at Hoop Summit. And that really, really worries me. in terms of what the overall ceiling is and what he can be on offense.
Sure.
I just worry a little bit about the coordination overall, like the hand-eye coordination. I didn't think he moved as well laterally is what I had hoped, maybe. Whenever I got to Hoop Summit and, hadn't seen him in person before, I thought that he moved okay laterally. I wouldn't say that it was like he can't switch. Like he's a drop big.
I agree.
He's a pure drop big to me.
I agree with that.
His hips are quite high comparatively. I think that at the end of the day, he's going to be more of a drop big.
Yep.
I didn't love his positioning in drop. I felt like he kind of struggled with where to be.
I think he gives a high foot. Like he turns his hips way too easily. And then even for somebody that flips their hips well as a 7-footer, even if he did, that's a tough recovery once you flipped your hips and given a high foot to attack like that.
And also gets caught in no man's land. Like he has so much more margin for error in regard to that space between the rolling big and the guard in ball screens, and he still like found a way to get stuck there, right?
Yeah.
And that worries me too. I do not have Common as Duke's second best prospect.
I know who your second one is. So, but no, this is one where on October 6th.
To be clear with you, Bryce, you are much closer to consensus on Common than where I am.
Yeah, sure. And I will say, like, it doesn't have to do with consensus. Like, I enjoyed I liked him the first time I watched him. I was intrigued the first time I watched him. And so, as I mentioned at the top, I don't know where to go after the top 5 right now. So I'm just going to bet on the guy that I think has crazy upside in an archetype that I personally believe is important, a little bit of a cheat code. And I will readily admit, maybe I overvalue, but that's where I'm going to be at. Common would be one of these players I'm going to watch early in the year, and I think could very quickly drop if all of the concerns we've talked about continue. But if he shows an ability to stretch the floor, if he's a nightmare on the boards, if he's improved defensively on the boards, I love how he contests with both hands. There's multiple examples of him blocking shots with his left hand, which is awesome. But if the passing is a concern, if the catching is a concern, if the touch around the rim when he isn't dunking is a concern, then he's probably not a top 10 guy as other guys prove themselves.
And like, to be clear again, like I don't think he's like a non-prospect. Like I have him in the 20s. Like I think he's quite interesting because he is so large and has real athletic tools that there are things here that are really interesting. It's just that I am a little bit lower than some are. Okay. Yep. Next. I'm going to throw a curveball at number 7 here.
Oh, let's go.
I'm going to take Ben Saraf.
Love it.
At Ulm. So Ben Saraf is I don't know what do you want to call him, guard wing hybrid. I think more of a guard, honestly.
I would call him a
than
guard.
A wing.
Yeah.
6'5" ish. Could be, I would say he could measure anywhere from 6'4.5" to 6'5.5" at the combine, and that won't surprise me either way. Kind of a guard for Ulm. And he played for the Israeli national team this summer at the U18 and had like his enormous coming out party.
He was good
there.
Really good.
He was unbelievable at that tournament.
He was good.
He was unbelievable. He had multiple 40-point games for the Israeli national team on his way to winning MVP of that tournament, despite the fact that Israel, I think, finished like 4th at that event. So averaged 28.1 points, 5 rebounds, 5.3 assists versus only 2.4 turnovers. Then, so far in 5 games for Ulm so far, is averaging 12.8 points and 4.4 assists versus only 2.6 turnovers. Has shot it a little bit poorly recently. And this is one where, like, again, I might not look great having Saraf here by the end of the process. He's been the guy where, like, I watch him and I'm just like, I get how this is a thing. His deceleration, his ability to slow down is a superpower to me.
For sure.
Like when I watch him, I'm just like, oh my goodness, like this is the different kind of pickups he has, the different abilities he has to navigate bodies in the paint, for a guy that is still 18 years old, it's just not normal. Like, it's just extremely not normal in terms of the way his body mechanics work. That's the kind of stuff that I look for whenever I'm looking for like a different style, creative on-ball guard in the NBA. I think that he has a number of those tools to be able to make plays like that. And I look at his passing ability. I love the passing ability. I think he sees the court super well. He's very creative as a passer and playmaker. I think that where this could go wrong and where he ends up as more of like a late first rounder or something is with the jumper.
Yep.
The jumper, I would say, off the catch right now is not something I have a great degree of confidence in.
Yeah.
Bryce, do you have thoughts?
No, sorry. I thought you were going to. Yeah, I'm interested to see how the shooting numbers go, because the mechanics to me aren't extremely quote unquote viable. In terms of like, he brings it right to the top of his head, then he pauses and then he shoots. Doesn't have a ton of elevation on the off the bounce, even though we have seen him knock down some mid-range. Listen, this kid may create more separation than anybody that we're going to talk about in this class. Like, it's silly, along with the deceleration, body control. He has touch. I text you a week or two ago. I said, man, I'm a little worried about the right hand. So I'm interested to see if he starts to show that. But then I also watch him just flat out make winning plays in the fourth quarter of a pro game where he's making
motor is so high.
Yeah. He's making good passes. Then he makes a mid-range jumper, grabs an offensive rebound, then makes a drive and throws a lob. And then I see him making like impactful defensive plays. I don't know how solid he's going to be, but I've seen a lot of playmaking and disruption. And again, in a pro league at 18 years old, he's changing the momentum of the game with back-to-back steals. One, he converts himself. The one, he throws a transition lead pass. So I'm cool with this. I have Serif top 10, 12 right now. And this is very much kind of all in the same tier for me. So I don't have any like qualms or issues with him being, what are we at? Is this number 7? I have no issues with him being at number 7 here.
Okay. Let's speed it up here. Let's go number 8.
Yeah, I'm going to go Drake Powell here. So going to North Carolina, just like, he's an off the ball jump shot maker. Like, he can really, really shoot the ball, good size. And I immediately love the elevation on the jump shot, insane elevation on the jumper. Has to be able to make it off the catch. I don't know. What are you as him as an athlete? I thought he covered ground in some things, I thought, but maybe not like
super long.
Yeah. Like, I didn't think he was like the twitchiness, like we talked about earlier. Had some nice off the ball backdoor cuts. He has a little bit of wiggle with the handle. And then I think defensively, like, he has the tools to be a two-way player. He'll get in a stance. He will be engaged, and he's good when he's locked in and engaged that way.
Yeah. So for me, I really, really appreciated the competitiveness.
Yeah.
Like, just in general, the motor was crazy, crazy high when I watched Drake Powell. I felt like, and he just consistently played hard. And yeah, you're right. Like, the defensive, whatever, right? Like the fundamentals, the mechanics weren't always there, but I did feel like his want to, and the length were really, really high end.
Yep.
What do we think he is on offense? You kind of mentioned like shot maker. Is he like, do you trust the shot to where he's like a real 3-point shooter? Do you trust the passing and playmate? Like, what do you think he is on offense would be my question.
I trust the jumper. I think he can be one of the better jump shot makers in the class. I don't know. Like, I see him as an off the ball player where the handle's kind of wide and loose. He does, like, again, he does have some wiggle and create separation, but I think he's more getting his buckets off the ball and knocking down jump shots.
Yep. So look, I had Drake at number 12 or 13 or so, like something in that ballpark. So this is in the ballpark for me.
Yep.
In terms of where he is. When you have 6 foot, what do we want to call him? 6'6".
I have him at 6'6". Yeah.
Yeah. It's hard to tell because he's so long. Like, he plays kind of bigger than 6'6" to me, I feel like. Yeah, like when you have guys like this, they're always going to be valuable in some respect, as long as the jumper comes along in the way that you think, because he is long, he is athletic, he does defend. I think that the scheme works really, really well for him. I think that he will create like real transition opportunities with steals. I think that he will fill lanes in transition. Like I would imagine he averages like 12 points a game this year, like pretty easy.
Yep. Yeah. No, I agree.
Okay. Number 9, I am again going somewhat off the wall, I guess I would say. I'm going to go Kasparas Yakoshonis going to Illinois.
Love it.
This year. Another guy that played at the U18 this summer, I thought was quite good. I thought he was really, really impressive at times. There were games where he was really good. There were games where, it felt like the Lithuanian team that he was playing on didn't quite have as much juice as some of the other teams, but their team was coached immaculately, and he really, really has juice. He is, to me, I don't know. What do you want to call him? I think he's like a combo guard where he can play both on and off the ball. I would imagine he's going to play largely on the ball for Illinois this year. Like it'll be him and Kylan Boswell splitting reps. 6'5", can really knock down shots. I think he knows how to play in ball screens at a really high level, can pass it at a super high level. This is a guy that I know you are really, really excited about because I made you watch his tape this summer.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, no, this is a guy. This is like a serious dude.
I would have taken him next if you didn't.
Okay.
And so I knew we were taking him soon. I mean, everybody we've taken so far is in my top 12. So like it hasn't gone like there's nothing crazy. I think he has creative finesse finishes. I like his creativity finishing and the way he plays with the ball in his hands. I had something. Oh no, the lob passes. I think he's a really good lob thrower. And I think that's important in the NBA. I think it's an underrated skill, but trying to do that is really important. I didn't think he always made the right decision, but I love watching him try things and trying to manipulate defenders in the ball screen. So I love seeing guards do that, come off a ball screen. You can see their eyes or trying to ball fake and those type of things. He's obviously going to make some mistakes, but I saw him trying to do those. So where are you at with the jumper? Because I look at him right now. As a primary initiator that can score. And so, he took a bunch of threes in different varieties, right? Like he'll do it off the bounce, step back. If he can knock it down off the catch, I thought it was just as fluid off the catch. So, and he can do it in transition. So he's just a really intriguing offensive player in terms of on the ball. And then I think there's off the ball potential as well if he needs to do that.
Yeah, so 94% from the foul line last year in 11 tracked games in the ANGT, a couple of ACB games, in a EuroLeague game, 83% from the line for Barcelona, in ANGT games in 2022-23. This past year, 80% from the line, 92% from the line in the past two U18 Euros over the last 2 summers. Like you said, like he really gets to the shot in a variety of ways. He is capable of coming off of screens, planting his feet, shooting and firing from distance. He is capable of pulling up and getting to a step back. I like the shot versatility. I think it's very flexible in terms of how he can be utilized in that way. And he just has touch. Like you can see it the way it comes out of his hand. He's another guy that I saw at Hoop Summit. He has that weird like kind of cup on the shot, or in terms of the follow through. But he is a real deal. I think he is a real shooter, I would say.
Yep.
And that's why he is ahead of, I don't know if you're going to take this guy next, but he's ahead of Con Knuppel for me because I really buy the passing and playmaking that Yakoshonis has in addition to the shooting. Like I think both of them will shoot, obviously. I think Yakoshonis just has more on the ball, basically.
Yeah. That is not where I'm going to go.
Okay.
I'm going to go Liam McNeely. This is another one of a guy I've watched for a lot of games at Montverde. Obviously, Cooper Flagg gets a lot of the attention and rightfully so. And I think with Liam, maybe there's some other guys that end up jumping ahead. I think with Liam, I just feel pretty strongly he's a lottery pick this year, and maybe he ends up 12 or 13 or, and depending on what he shows an ability to do off the bounce and how well he shoots it. but I think he can really, really shoot. And I think he has other tertiary skills. I think he can attack closeouts. He has a strong build and he has good size to attack closeouts. I think he can be a good ball mover as a passer at the very least, but he also understands off the ball cutting, offensive rebounding, those type of things. And the defense has a little bit of work, but I'm pretty sure he like really values it and is working on it. I think Connecticut probably is coaching him up very well. And to be quite honest, that's another part of this. I think that staff is awesome at Connecticut, and they're going to find ways to make him look his best. And I'm really glad he ended up there.
Well, it's a great scheme fit because of the shooting, right? Like they'll know exactly how to run him off of actions. They'll put him, in similar actions to what they used Cam Spencer last year, Jordan Hawkins 2 years ago, right? Like he can play off of all of those actions and fire from distance, off of movement at a really high level. Look, I think Liam is excellent. I think Liam is a really high level player. You mentioned the defense. I think he knows exactly where he has to be on defense. You're muted.
Yes, he absolutely does. Like he's at the very least, he's going to be a great team defender at the very least.
Yeah. It's just like, is he going to be able to hit like average in the NBA or not? I think he can, just given the overall intelligence. It's just that he is somebody that probably doesn't have the lateral quickness to be like a real plus or like a difference maker in any regard there. But I don't think he'll ever be like out of place.
I agree. And I think the real value on ball could be from potential, like just his size and his strength and offering a little bit of versatility in that way. But he's going to be a great team defender.
And what we think he's 6'6", like a pretty real 6'6", I feel like.
Yep. I would say so.
Yeah. Okay. So just a quick run through of where we are so far. Cooper Flagg, number 1, Ace Bailey, number 2, Dylan Harper, number 3, VJ Edgecombe, number 4, Nolan Traore, number 5, Common Malawak, number 6, Ben Seraph, number 7, Drake Powell, number 8, Kasparis Yakashonis at number 9, Liam McNeely at number 10. I am up now at number 11. I am going to take Con Kneppel here. Con Kneppel is a player that I feel like you and I have been talking about for quite a while because of my adoration for him. Watching him at Wisconsin, one of the most fun AAU tape, some of the most fun AAU tape I've ever seen, just because you'd see all these athletic dudes like know that they have to guard him and know that they have to stop him in Wisconsin, and they have no chance. Like they have absolutely no chance. He's like 6'5", 220 pounds, and just physical as hell and super strong. As soon as he gets an advantage in a ball screen, as soon as he gets an advantage, because you have to close out on him so exceptionally hard, it's over because he's just keeping you on his back from that second, and it's done. That to me is the thing. The shooting is ridiculous. He is an unbelievable shooter. He's an unbelievable shot maker. I would expect he shoots 40% from 3 this year, but he's going to do more than that. Like he's going to be able to attack closeouts and pass and play make. He's going to be able to really be that kind of off ball scorer that we've seen. Anybody that's been down to Duke that I've talked to so far just can't stop raving about him. And this is a guy that I think I was the only person that was mocking him back in July. And I was like, yes, this is very obvious to me. He's an unbelievable basketball player offensively. When I watch him, it was the most fun thing in the world. And we won't talk about the defense because I don't want to, but offensively, there's just a lot there that translates to the NBA from day one.
Yeah, I mean, this was a player I was a little bit later on, as I was trying to do my research, and then I turned on, is like, dang, this kid, like, he can really shoot it, as you said, like off the catch, off the move, off screens, off the dribble. He's making clutch ones late in one of the games I watched, and from deep, he kind of has a crafty old school game in the mid post. Like he had some really fun stuff there. Like, and what I think really translates, I don't know that he's going to get a lot of mid post isolations, but is the touch and the finesse, being able to finish those in tight areas. So when he does get a closeout and he gives a shot fake and then he takes 2 dribbles and gets into the same general area, being able to hit a floater. But I think he also is a good ball mover. Like he's a good passer with that as well, and very unselfish. So I like that. Defensively, my biggest thing is I thought he gets real ball watchy off the ball. But yeah, I mean, it's, again, we'll see how these guys really hold up once they get into the college setting, but hard to argue against somebody with good size. What do we think he is height wise?
6'5".
Okay. Yeah.
I'm going to say, I think he's listed at 6'6" at Duke.
He's
I
listed.
would say
Yeah.
6'5".
Okay. Yeah.
It's going to be where I go on
Yep.
that. Okay. You're up at 12, Bryce.
Yeah. I'm going to go Yegor Damon at BYU. And, this is not a guy I have as good a feel for, but, somebody with his size, I'm definitely intrigued. I'm a little interested to see like where the jumper ends up. He was very willing. There was plenty of volume, long athlete, long and smooth look, has the finesse finishing. It's just somebody like him. Like, is he a true on-ball guy? Is he a little more off the ball? How does he pressure the rim? Really love how he used eye manipulation, and he gets the ball out of his hands, quickly. So where do you stand on? I had this conversation with the scout actually yesterday in terms of primary initiator versus like wing secondary creator type role.
Has to be a primary.
Yeah. Okay.
Only way it works. Because I don't have, this is the first player where we're like very, very different on.
Okay.
So I don't have a top 25 on him right now.
Okay.
And then I just like have a big group of guys beyond that. Would have considered him when we got down into like the 28 to 30 range, because I'm gonna have to make one of those picks, right? But I don't know how he scores is my issue.
Sure.
I didn't think he like dealt with contact super well around the basket. So when he drives, I just felt like, okay, try and make him a scorer, stay at home, and contest basically with your guards. The thing is, again, like you're right, he's like 6'8", 6'9", like he's a big dude. So he can play as a playmaker on the ball and be able to handle situations like that. And I actually really like the passing. I think he can really, really pass and play make. I just don't think he can shoot either. So okay, so I'm getting a guy that I think can pass and can play with the ball at 6'9", but NBA teams just make those guys scorers. So I'm not like, he has clear upside. Like if he figures out an answer to the scoring question, then he's like a top 20 guy for sure. But I just don't know. Like I don't love the shot and I don't love the finishing. I kind of think he needs those to unlock his game. So I don't know what to make of him yet, I guess is what I would say.
Yeah, no, and that's what I ended the conversation last night with. Like, he's definitely a guy. I'm not sitting here super comfortable with where I'm taking him. I want to see it. Like, I want to see more. I want to see it at BYU. And then, like Liam McNeely, I feel very good about who he is as a player, and then just does it translate, right? Does the shooting translate and some of those things with, I'm not fully sure what this kid is yet. And we'll see early on at BYU, and that'll give me a better gauge.
I think that's right. Like he is somebody that is like a swing player in this class.
Yeah.
Like him and Dink Pate are in very similar buckets to me, where like you could tell me Dink, figures out the scoring questions and doesn't have a 43% true shooting percentage this year, and he's really interesting and really exciting. Or you could tell me, the scoring doesn't figure itself out and it's hard to take a guy like that in the top 25 or whatever, just because if you can't score, it's hard to do anything in the NBA. So, real swing guy to me, where could very easily end up in this range, could end up as a 2026 guy, I think.
Yep.
Okay. Next up, I'm going to go Asa Newell here.
Yep.
Number 13. Asa Newell is I don't know, what do we want to call him? Forward, almost like a 5-ish game sometimes, right? Like, can be more of a 5 on offense than a tried and true like 4-man necessarily. But what I really like about Asa Newell is just plays super hard all the time, has unbelievable instincts. Every single time I watch him, it just feels like he's making a winning play. Was awesome for these Montverde teams with Cooper Flagg, obviously. Really developed, I would say, the offensive game over the course of the last 18-ish months, where, a lefty who could end up knocking down shots from the perimeter, could kind of face up a little bit. But that's a work in progress more than anything with him right now. To me, it's more, he just has incredible, know how to play shit to him. And great touch around the basket, despite the fact that, he's not wildly long or anything, but has real pop. I think he's a legitimately great rim protector. Whenever I've seen him, like he is fantastic at being able to protect the rim and being able to contest at the basket sometimes without fouling as well. Yeah, I think he is. I think he's outstanding. I'm a big Ace and Newell fan.
Yeah, and going to Georgia, right? Like that Georgia team's going to be really interesting.
Yeah,
They got a guard on that team that I really like. I don't know that he's going to end up getting picked, but Silas Demery is a kid that
yeah,
going into last year I was a big fan of, and now coming back for his sophomore year. So that Georgia team is going to be interesting with Asa and then Silas. And so I'm excited to watch them and see how that plays out. Ace is kind of the archetype that's really interesting, is like a 4-man that can scale down and play some 5. And especially if like the face up stuff really comes into play, along with, like you mentioned, the ability to protect the rim and that type of stuff.
Yep. I would say he's more in the 6'9" bucket than the 6'10" bucket, if I'm being honest. You mentioned the Georgia, roster as a whole is funny. I saw Rothstein tweeted about Georgia. I think he might have been there or something. And I texted him. I was like, I think Georgia ends up ranked at some point this year.
Okay.
Look, like, I don't know if they are a top 25 team, but I bet you they end up in the rankings at some point. I think that roster is super fun.
Yeah.
Like they have, as you mentioned, Silas Demery. Then they also have Tyron Lawrence and Dakota Lefew, who were really good transfer gets. They got the Drezic kid. I don't know if you watched him with the Serbian team that won gold at the U18s. I thought he was really good as like kind of a 6'5" combo-y, could play some point. Really, really high level guard. And then they also went out and got RJ Godfrey from Clemson, who I've always kind of sneaky thought is like an incredible college player. Because he's so physical and strong. I think his dad played in the NFL. Then they also got Somto Surreal too, who I think is a project, to be honest. But another guy, super long, shot blocking center, who played at OTE. They just kind of have a lot of dudes. They have a lot of guys that I'm really interested in watching this year, who I think probably will play a really effective brand of basketball in the SEC.
Yep. No, they're going to be a very, very fun team to watch.
Okay, Bryce, you're up at 14.
Oh, like I said, this is the part I don't love. I think I'll just go Hugo Gonzalez here.
Okay.
At 14. Has some off the bounce and passing juice, well built, jumper looks solid and fluid. I think the numbers from the year before weren't exactly amazing, so it'll be interesting to see how those come around. I just definitely want to track that throughout the year in terms of the jumper and how much I believe in that. Like I said, he has a little off the bounce, can attack a closeout. Had a split of the defense and a ball screen in the U18s, and then can play off the bounce, off the ball as well, with backdoor cuts, finishes, anticipates the offensive boards. And then, what can he be defensively, kind of, at his size? Can he, provide some value in that way? I thought he had some energy off the ball defensively. I didn't love it as much on the ball.
Yeah, so I love his overall motor and defensive playmaking. Yeah, I think that he is that's like the thing that stands out most to me. Like, he's a fantastic team defender who, when I was watching him U18s this summer, like it seemed like he was the one that was constantly like quarterbacking the defense, and kind of making sure that everyone knew where to be, that he was communicating super well. The jumper is the key with him.
Yep.
Right. Like the jumper is absolutely the key, because if he can't shoot it, and I think that he probably will shoot it at some point, but it's at what level to me? Like, is he just like you have to be open, catch and shoot guy? But the mechanics look really funky.
So that's what I was going to say. I was looking again and it said, I don't love the form quite as much on my second watch. So I feel like I've had some inconsistency as I watched him more in terms of how much I believed in the jumper.
As a sniper in a previous life, right?
Yep.
Do you think it is easier to rebuild a shot's base or to fix issues at the top of a shot? Because when I watch Hugo, I think it's more base stuff with him, where like he just kind of seems like off balance a little bit.
Yeah. Ooh, I want to say base, but I've told you this, Sam, like I can't teach the mechanics of the upper body of a jump shot. I just think about if somebody wanted to change my jumper, I don't think I could do it. But when I got to American was the first time they taught me 1-2, and I feel like I picked that up pretty easy in terms of getting my feet the way they wanted it. And
so you typically shot off the hop when you were younger.
Yeah, or I just didn't think about it and had no idea, but there definitely wasn't a consistency or a rhyme or reason to it until I got there. And then it was always 1-2 inside foot first. And I feel like I was able to pick that up pretty well. And so for me anyway, I think that was way easier than if I would have got there. Like I honestly would have been pissed if they would have tried to change my mechanics of my arm mechanics. And I don't know that I could have done it. It would have been such a mental frustration. I don't think I could do it.
Yeah, no, I get that. Okay. Number 15, I'm going to take Colin Murray Boyles.
Yeah. Gosh dang it.
Yeah. 6'7", super long arms. What are we going to say? Like 7'1", 7'2" wingspan. Like it's got to be in that ballpark.
Plus.
Super plus wingspan. Was absolutely outstanding last season, late in the year for South Carolina. Did an amazing job. He started the season. He was like, I think he was like sick early in the year, if I remember correctly, right? And didn't really step up for South Carolina until really about, I don't know, what do you want to say, February?
Yeah, it was later in the year, yeah.
From February 3rd onward, for a team that made the NCAA tournament and was quite good, he averaged 15 points, shot 65% from the field, averaged 7.5 rebounds, 1.8 steal or 1.8 assists, 1.5 steals, 1.3 blocks. Shot 76% from the line. Awesome defensive player, super long, athletic enough to guard in space. Like I think he's fine in space defensively, don't you?
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah. I'd say he's really good in a team construct defensively, where like he's able to use his length and kind of cut off angles and cover ground, but fine on the ball. The key is that he doesn't take threes right now.
Correct.
The shot looks fine to me. He's like a lefty.
Yep.
Things, seem to be in alignment. Things seem to have rhythm. He makes shots from the foul line. He just doesn't take threes. And what my worry is, from what I've been told, he looks even stronger this year, physically, like not in a bad way.
No, I'm saying like, for other teams, because that dude is
totally.
Sam, I think one of his most underrated skills is being a screen setter. I think he is one of the best bigs as a screen setter. Like he lays dudes out.
He is physical. He is strong as hell. And what I was told was like, the worry is just like, okay, so nobody could really stop him on the block by the end of last year.
And now nobody really.
How are they going to deal with him now? Like it's just a very similar skill package to like a longer Grant Williams to me. It's kind of the easiest way to put it.
Yeah. Play finishes, off ball movement, offensive rebounding, has insane instincts, and he has real touch. Like I think he has real soft touch around the rim. Like he'll make some shots. I'm like, dang, a guy we're going to talk about eventually. Your guy, Alex Tui, I think kind of is a weird finisher in the lane, but he just seemed to be able to do it. Colin Murray Boyles has a little bit of that as well. It's just with the, he's left-handed. I've heard he can shoot it. I don't know. You hear that about guys sometimes, but he was awesome at the end of last year. And then you mentioned defensively, just the length and the feel to be disruptive and, just matchup versatility with some of that stuff. I'm not saying he's like, I wouldn't call him crazy switchable, but just interesting. He's an interesting archetype with real skill and I think can provide real value. And then if he really shoots it, I mean, this is a real range for him.
Yeah. And we're getting into areas where, with how long his name is on the graphic here, it's a problem on YouTube for us.
We can barely read his name because of it.
Might have to make some adjustments there. Bryce, you're up at number 16.
Yeah, let's go the home run name again. You mentioned it earlier. Let's just go Dink Pate and see what happens here. Insane length. If he's a primary great creator, I think you agree he has to be a primary creator.
As his game is currently constructed.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep. Yeah. So I think how twitchy is he? How well is he able to break down a defense? But, yeah, like he has to be that guy. But I kind of love these bigger primary guards. And he played with the Ignite last year. We've talked about this a lot. I think with Mexico City, we're going to get a real chance to see what he's capable of. And then I like some of the stuff he did defensively. I thought he was willing to get in a stance, had possessions where he gave multiple efforts and then contested and was even showed engagement off the ball. So I think he could be impactful on that end. This is a real bet on either the jumper really coming around. I think you threw out the true shooting percentage earlier. Absolutely right. And so I did see some stuff where he played off the ball, and I didn't mind some of his off ball movement and relocation and that type of stuff. So it'll be interesting to see how Mexico City uses him.
That's kind of what gave me pause, because I remember those kind of tapes as well. Like, you asked me, is he an off ball player or an on ball player only? And I was kind of like, mate, like, to reach the ceiling of going 16th is probably going to have to involve a lot of on ball reps, right? But yeah, I think that there are some aspects there. The key is the shot. Like, you just got to shoot it at some point. Really has to be a catch and shoot weapon at some point if he's going to play off the ball. But on the ball, there are real tools here in terms of passing, playmaking. He's a 6'8" point guard, basically, which is valuable in some respect. It's just in what respect?
Yeah. No, and that's what I'll be like, complete transparency. I watched some of his better games at the end of the year where he was making shots. And so obviously he looked very good in those. So it's like, okay, this is the high end outcome where he has all of that on ball stuff, but hey, you can even go play off the ball and knock down a catch and shoot or relocate and attack a closeout, along with
where I love him is in ball screens. Like, I think he's awesome. Like, in terms of like getting guys on his hip and like using his size and his length to just, make life very, very hard for opposing guards.
Yep. Agreed.
Okay. Number 17 here. I'm going to go Donnie Freeman.
Yeah. I like that one.
Out of Syracuse, as I write it down. Okay. What I like about Donnie Freeman is he's just like a, what do we want to call him? 6'8.5", 6'9.5". Like, you could tell me any size here.
Yeah.
It's around 6'8" to 6'9" and I would believe it, but just has like a lot of skills intersecting at once for somebody who is this big at the 4 spot, right? I think he has great hands, catches the ball on the move all the time. Has very good touch, showcased some ability to potentially knock down shots. I liked his defensive ability. I thought he was pretty solid on that end when I saw him. The key is that his frame is just like a little bit less developed than what some guys are. Like, he's still pretty skinny, but there's explosiveness there. Like, there's inherent twitch there in some respect that I think will continue to come out as he gets stronger and the frame continues to grow and mature. But he was a late riser throughout this high school class. Like, it took a minute because of that. It took a minute for him to like really truly become a productive, consistently productive player. And yeah, I'm a fan of what I've seen so far.
Yeah. How important is the jumper for him?
I think quite. Yeah. I would think quite important. Like, he's really good right now from like the mid-range ish areas. Whenever I see him, like, I feel like he's a lot more comfortable like mid post and then like elevating over the top kind of thing, as opposed to shooting from 3. But I think he has enough touch to where I'm like, okay, given what I've seen already, like, I think he probably will shoot 3s, but it's really important, undeniably.
Yeah, no, I think that's where I'm at. Like, if he really shoots it, I like that archetype at the 4. For him, he had a little more vertical pop than what I originally thought as I continued to watch games. And so, yeah, I think being able to extend that out, be like kind of a catch and shoot from the corner or pick and pop will be important for him.
So we've gone through 17 picks here. I just want to call something out, basically. I would say we've only drafted one player 6'3" or shorter. I mean, like, I don't know, VJ and Trey. Really, if you throw out VJ and Traore, we haven't drafted any that are 6'3" or shorter. But like, those two were in that ballpark in terms of height, I would say, having seen them in person. I would say maybe 6'3.5" without shoes. Definitely sub 6'4", I would say. Does that surprise you, or is it just more of an inclination of where the NBA is going at this point?
I mean, it doesn't surprise me with you and I doing this,
Fair
but
point. Good
I
point.
mean, what's the like Boogie's the only name that would break that tendency that's really who else?
So like Trey Johnson's 6'5.5", 6'5" ish, but like not super long, right?
Yeah.
Jaleel Bethea, I know is listed at 6'4". I will be interested to see a full measurement on Bethea. Jalen Lowe is a guy that we might pick later. Yeah, there are names here, but by and large, it feels like we are going bigger than most mock drafts I've seen, which is probably honestly, like I think is right more than anything.
We're going to stick with the trend because I'm going to take another player in the archetype that we've been talking about. So maybe this is
let's do it.
Maybe this is a blind spot for both of us. I'm going to go Kwame Evans, KJ Evans Jr. at Oregon, versatile forward, some defensive playmaking. I think the jumper has to be able to knock him down. It was below 30% last year, but he was 80% from the free throw line. I think he can be crazy impactful. Like I think he can be a nightmare on the offensive boards. So you have that. And if he catch and shoot threes, pick and pop, whatever space in the corner, he could be really, really impactful just doing that stuff on the offensive end, let alone if he could then attack closeouts and those type of things. And, go screen and pop, pick and pop, DHOs, stuff like that. And then I think he has real defensive playmaking. He has length, can test shots with verticality. And so I'm intrigued by him. I don't know what people thought about his freshman year, but in 22 minutes, Sam, he averaged over 2 stocks, over a steal, and out a block per game. I think he's really intriguing. And yet again, this is an archetype that I really like. So I'll go Kwame Evans here.
Terrific defensive playmaker. So obviously people use free throw shooting as a barometer of touch, right?
Sure.
And I think I used it earlier with Yakashonis, and we had that conversation too. But with his shot, like I feel like it just looks funkier when he's on the move, right? I feel like things get like slightly like out of alignment, like a little bit in like a strange way. And I don't know exactly what it is. It just feels like it's a little bit harder transitioning him to like the run of play when he's shooting than it does, the free throw line, right? And he shot 27% from 3 last year. So it is what it is. But I think people are assuming that he's going to shoot.
Yeah.
Not you necessarily. If I thought he could shoot, I would have him in this range.
Yeah.
I guess is what I would say. If you buy the jumper, I think this is probably the right range. I'm just a little bit more skeptical on the jumper, and I hope I'm wrong.
Yeah. I think that's fair.
Yeah. Okay. I'm up at 19. The next guy on my list, it does actually look like, is Jaleel Bethea.
Okay.
So Jaleel Bethea is going to Miami this year. He is a, I don't know, twitchy guard. Let's go with like very, very twitchy shot maker guard. And man, when he gets going, when he has it, it is something special. Like he can really get that thing firing. He is an unbelievable pull-up scorer. He is real open floor transition ability as an athlete. Like he will rise up and throw down in transition and like has some really, really fun moments there. I don't totally know what he is yet in the half court beyond just the shooting right now would be my main concern. Like I think he can really shoot it. I totally buy that. And I think you can use him in a variety of fun ways, like off the move, to be able to get him open shots. He is just very, 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 very skinny. And I'm interested to see how that transition to college basketball goes because of that. Because some of these guys are great. Some of them struggle with that physical adjustment.
Yeah. I mean, my overarching notes on Bethea is 3-point shooting chucker, not necessarily in a bad way, but like he's getting them up and he has a quick trigger at any time and from anywhere. And so
but he makes them is the thing.
Yeah, no,
like, he
and
really can make them.
And that's why I say, like, I don't think chucker is like a fair term. It's just like, it's what makes sense to me to like, just it's a trigger for me of, okay, this is how he plays. And like you say, I'm going to say with this trend with my pick next with another name that I think goes similarly, but until we see how that translates, like, because if he goes in and they can do it efficiently, then they're going to come, like, he's going to get drafted. Like he's going to be a first round pick. If he doesn't, he's inefficient and he, doesn't bring it defensively and size and all of those become concerns, then, he almost doesn't even become a 2025 guy.
Yeah, totally. Like he could be a lottery pick. He could be a 2026. It's just he's another swing guy for me in a real way where he could be like fantastic, or it could take a minute for him to really adjust to college hoops.
Yep.
Okay. Bryce, you're up at 20.
Yeah. So I'll just go Trey Johnson and we'll have a similar,
knock him out.
Yeah, to have a similar type conversation, right? Like he is a bucket. He can score at different levels. I think you talked about it a little bit ago. Like he's not short, at least, right? He's 6'5", 6'6", 6'5". Give him 6'5". And
for what it's worth at Hoop Summit, I think he was like, maybe I don't have those measurements. I want to say somebody like measured him at like 6'5.5", as you say that.
Yeah. So, it just like, how dynamic of a scorer can he be? How does that go with what he is or isn't on the defensive end? I think for a lot of time with these guys it's first and foremost, can they be efficient scorers, right? Like, can he come in and get buckets like his, nature is? And then does he provide any other ancillary value? Is he a good rebounder? Does he create? Is he neutral defensively, or at least make plays defensively? If you add in any of those things, then it becomes really good value if the scoring is there.
So my worry is that he's basically a scoring wing, let's say, that just like doesn't have a lot of explosiveness.
Sure.
Like whenever I watch him, like it just feels a little bit.
That's a fair worry. Yep.
Yeah. Like there's like with Dylan Harper isn't super fast, right? But he has dynamic movements where even though he's not like explosive vertically, the movement feels like it is forcing separation from defenders in some respect, right?
Yep.
When I watch Trey, I don't know that I necessarily see that similar level of like dynamic separation ability necessarily. I'm intrigued to see what the overall game looks like at Texas, because I could see him really being excellent, or I could see it being like a bit inefficient, and then like where else does he provide value? I will say this, like I always felt like he crashed the glass hard. I felt like that could be one area where he does provide real value beyond the bucket, right? I felt like he was always aggressive in trying to rebound the basketball, which can be of real value to me.
When we're talking about this archetype of player, if you just add that one other ancillary skill, it becomes a little bit more valuable and easy to digest.
Okay, so just to recap this middle portion here. Con Kneppel at 11, Yegor Demen at number 12, Asa Newell 13, Hugo Gonzalez 14, Colin Murray Boyles 15, Dink Pate 16, Donnie Freeman 17, KJ Evans 18, Jaleel Bethea 19, Trey Johnson 20. Okay, I'm up now. I'm going to take at 21. I will take Alex Caravan here.
Nice. I like it. Yep.
And I ended up with Caravan with a first round grade last year as well.
Yeah.
So like, this is not me like, oh yeah, the guy came back, like, let's move him up. No, like I had him, I think at like 26 or so last year. So like very, very minor improvement here to 21. I think he is a real shooter, a real like catch and shoot shot maker. I believe that if he has his feet set, he's going to make threes. That is the reality. Plus, he showcases the ability to run off of some movement. He's not the guy that they have flying off of actions within that offense, but he is somebody that shows the ability, particularly to cut off the ball, I would argue. But more than that, he can at least like knock down a three on the move at times. What I particularly love about Caravan is he's 6'7" or so with a 7-foot wingspan, and he's fucking outstanding on defense, Bryce. He is so good in just blowing up everything across that weak side. He's not like some crazy shot blocker or anything, but he gets his hands in everything, it feels like, whether he's like trying to rake down on the ball and strip it before somebody goes up for a shot, or he's like deflecting a ball on the weak side when someone tries to throw a skip pass. He's constantly rotating over. He's constantly available defensively. I just think he's like a very clear rotation player in the NBA. It might be a bench player, but I think he's a rotation player in the NBA.
Yeah, I mean, I had him as a late first, early second round grade last year. I don't think that's going to change, just being a year older or whatever. I mean, I'm not worried about it. He shot 40% from three last year, 50%, almost 90% from the line. And yeah, you mentioned, I think the offensive profile is pretty simple, not in a bad way, but pretty simple with him. Defensively, sure, foot speed, who does he defend? Some of those things. But as you mentioned, I think he's a really quality team defender from day one because of his communication and positioning. I think he's a high level communicator, and I think he's always in the right spot. And I really value that for a guy that you're not bringing him in to guard the other team's best players. So why not have a guy that's going to execute your scheme to a T?
Yep. Okay. You're up at 22.
What are we doing with Hanson Yang? Like, are we considering him
draftable?
Okay, I'm gonna take Hanson.
You want to draft Hanson Yang? You are allowed to draft Hanson Yang.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure. I know we've had 7'1", big, skilled, can do things out of ball screen, screen and roll, not handling the ball, of course. DHOs, operate from the top of the key. Just really good passing reads. The more I watch, the more I liked out of ball screens and his ability to finish. Who knows what he can actually do shooting wise, and then defensively, he's just huge. Now, here's my big concern is we saw him before Summer League. No, in the Sacramento Summer League.
They played at the Sacramento Summer League where they were on like the Chinese national team. And
the movement ability is concerning. Like I am nervous. And so I get it. Like I came away less excited about him after that than I was before. And that's why until I get names that I like even more, this could continue to really, really drop.
Yeah, I have some worries.
Yeah,
on the lateral ability there. Got some worries. I was excited about him for about a month last year.
Yeah,
I liked him as like, hey, this is like an interesting second round stash. Maybe to me. I still think it's that probably more than anything, but the passing is kind of gross for a 7-foot dude. Like can really, really pass and make plays and distribute the ball from the high post. And like that, there is some stuff there in terms of like just the way he sees the court and the way he plays the game.
Yeah.
Okay. At number 23, I will rip the Band-Aid here. Let's talk about Rocco Zikarsky.
Okay.
So I like Rocco. I like Rocco enough, I would say. He is 7'3". He is mobile, has good hands. I don't think that the overall feel for the game is there yet. And it's like he is a project to me. Like it is not you draft, like anybody that has him in the lottery right now is out of their minds to me. He is a substantial project. He is a substantial project. Now, there are a lot of tools there where I'm really interested. So like he made a 3 this weekend, actually, for Brisbane, and the shot looked pretty clean coming out of his hand. I'm going to do like a Rocco breakdown from that game this weekend. It'll probably go up tomorrow on the YouTube channel. He has some stuff where it's like, oh, this is fascinating. And like, having talked to him, like he kind of understands who he is. Like he wants to be like the rim runner. He wants to be okay, I want to go and just, attack the basket. Right. He's like, okay, like if I have a guy sealed on the block, like I'm good. Like I don't need to like go post up on the block all the time though. Like he gets where the NBA is going. Like there's that piece of it. I think that defensively it is so all over the place right now. It's quite hard at times for him to be on the court defensively because teams will just space him out and put him in ball screens, and his understanding of like that gap between the ball handler and the big is still developing. I think that when teams play him like in space or when he gets caught in like a switch situation, he has to guard a shooter. His closeout stuff is really bad right now. Like his instincts defensively in terms of like how to close out on a shooter, he just ends up way too high and like he gets driven or he comes out too short. Like he doesn't know how to manage that gap yet, kind of. And I say this like, again, knowing that this is totally a work in progress. And I think that he's another one where some people forget that he is still only 18 years old. And because his pathway was sped up and they moved him to the NBL last year, I think people maybe feel like he should be further ahead than he is right now. He's an 18-year-old playing in the NBL. Like some of these issues I'm talking about are completely understandable. But like even still, like from a balance perspective on some things, right? Catching and like finishing at times is a little bit hard for him if he's sped up at all. Like he has moments where like he'll just like kind of throw the ball off the glass with his left hand and it doesn't look super great. Like it has a lot of touch. You've watched a decent amount of these NBL games now this year. Probably not as many as I have, but what was your take on Rocco?
Yeah, I mean, I guess for me, I'm still almost looking at him as more like not after this year. Like I'm way
honestly
off here, but
I kind of think there's a real shot he's a 2026.
Yeah.
Which would be totally fine. And
yeah,
he would still be 19 years old on draft day in 2026. But like that potential exists. That potential really, really exists.
And maybe it comes down to how many other true bigs are good in this class and, you know, the need for them and a team's appetite to, you know, just bring him in and pre-draft him or whatever you want to call it, you know, a year early. That's just kind of where I'm at with Rocco right now.
Yeah, no, I agree. I'm in the same spot. It might be this year. It might not be this year. And we'll see what happens. Okay. Number 24. You are up, Bryce.
Okay. So 24. So I have a few more because I have some names that I'm like, that aren't on consensus that I'm going to have some fun with. But right here, I'm going to take a guy that I just really like. I thought he was going to get drafted last year, and that's Hunter Salas at Wake Forest.
Love him.
Athletic, potential 3-level scoring guard. I think he gives energy and effort on the defensive end. I'm not saying he's solid, like fundamentally on that end, but I think he gives effort. He has a good.
I thought he was better at Gonzaga on defense actually than what he was last year. The Gonzaga tape where they would use him on defense and he didn't have as much of an offensive role, I thought was quite good.
Sure. Which makes sense. I think he measured 6'3.5" and then had like a +6 wingspan. So that tracked to some of what I had in my notes. I just think he's got real athleticism. I think he'd be really good in transition. And you get to the end of the first round. If you can bring in a guard to come off the bench and do the things we're talking about, like, I think there's a real chance he averages 20 a game this year. And he's still only 21. He won't turn 22 till March. So as a fourth year player, he's still, it's not like he's 23, 24, something like that. Shot over 40% from three on really good volume. Wouldn't hate to see some more of the passing flashes, but I feel pretty good about him at the end of the first round.
I had Caravan and Salas were my two guys that were first round grades for me last year that decided to go back. And I ended up, I think, 27 for Caravan or so, and like 29 or 30 for Salas. So, this is a completely, I say that to say this makes all the sense in the world to me. I really liked Hunter Salas's tape last year. I thought that his ability to become like a real volume 3-point shooter was one of the great developments really of college basketball last season. Like he was kind of a non-shooter. Entering Gonzaga and like didn't really improve as a shooter at Gonzaga. And then he comes out and he's making like 40% of his 6 threes a game or whatever it was this past year at Wake. So look, he's a great athlete, real talent with the ball in his hands.
Yep.
Okay. I'm going to take Alex Tui at 25.
Yep.
Tui has definitely had the best start of any of the kids over here in Australia for Sydney. He has been like a legitimate starter on a team that is as good as any team in this league. I would argue they look great so far. He's played 6 games. He's averaging 16 points, shooting 53, 54, 81, 3 rebounds, 2 assists, 1.2 steals. I will say, if you go watch the video I did breaking him down, I think his defensive play is quite strong. I think he really knows where he has to be defensively. I think that he is really, really sharp on that end. There are some things he has to improve. Like, again, another guy where he like jumps to the ball and really has to improve the closeout technique as much as anything. But at number 25, I am happy taking a guy that is 6'7", 6'8", something in that ballpark, measured with a 9-foot standing reach at Hoop Summit in 2023. And, can really, really shoot the ball. Like, that's the thing that stands out to me. The mechanics with the jumper just are absolutely outstanding. There's every reason to buy him as a shooter long-term in the NBA.
Yep. No, I like it. And again, like you talked about the floor spacing, if that continues, he's really good.
Yeah, I think so too. Okay. Number 26, Bryce.
All right, let's have some fun. You ready to have some fun, Sam?
I love it. You've got 3 picks left. Let's go crazy, kid.
I'm pretty sure most people won't even know who this kid is, but I think they're going to get to know him. We're going to go back to the Big Sky, my favorite conference to talk about after Dalton Connect got drafted last year.
I almost asked if you were going to do this.
I'm definitely, I'm doing this. Dylan Jones went in the first round last year. I'm going to take St. Thomas, previously of Northern Colorado.
Not who I thought you were taking, but I'm here for it.
Did you think Cedric? Were you thinking Cedric Coward?
I thought you were going to take Cedric Coward.
He's really good also. Cedric Coward is very, very good. St. Thomas played at Northern Colorado last year. He's at USC this year. And like, I'm obviously we got to see it scale up. What I love about St. Thomas, Dylan Jones at Weber State a couple years ago kind of got on the NBA radars, draft radars. St. Thomas had just as good a season this last year at Northern Colorado as Dylan Jones had. And I think St. Thomas kind of role and archetype and body and all of that projects just as good. So he's going to have to show at USC this year that he can really shoot it. He shot 33% from threes last year on over 6 attempts, but he did a lot of playmaking for that Northern Colorado team. So, he can pass, but that's going to scale back a little bit. He also averaged almost 10 rebounds. I think you're going to see him play in a role that NBA teams will see from him. And I think he's going to flourish in it. So listen, does he end up being a first round pick? I don't know, but I wanted to start the St. Thomas love here early in the draft season.
Yeah, I'm interested to see what it looks like at USC just because they have so many bodies there. Like, so many
it
players,
is an interesting roster, right?
Yeah, like Des Claude is there.
Claude, yep.
Do they play St. Thomas at the 4? Do they play him more at the 3? Like, honestly, Muss played like Jordan Caroline at the 5 for multiple years at Nevada. Like, do we see weird like St. Thomas at the 5 lineups at times, right? Like,
sure.
You could just throw out so many different things with them. And I feel the same way kind of about UCLA as well this year, where they just have like a lot of different bodies and dudes that could look some type of way or not be NBA players. Like, I don't know, to be honest with you. St. Thomas, though, obviously had a great year at Northern Colorado last year. To me, it does come down to the shot. Like, he really has to be like a 40% 3-point shooter, 38% 3-point shooter.
And for what it's worth, if you're a free throw percentage person, and he started at Loyola before he went to Northern Colorado. So the sample size in his college career, I mean, there was only 24 before Northern Colorado, but he's an 86% free throw shooter on 160 attempts. So there's potential real shooting touch. And again, like, he rebounded the heck out of the ball while also taking on a ton of offensive usage last year. So it's going to be a different role. We'll see how well he plays in it. Des Claude is also a player I really like, but another one that he has to really shoot it this year.
Okay. Next for me is I'm going to take Mateus Krivas at Arizona.
Yes, I love it.
7'2" big man. He just kind of moves in a way that 7'2" dudes shouldn't move. Like, it's very weird. Like, he's so fluid with the ball and his like when he like posts and with his feet. Like he is more fluid than what you expect for somebody like that, who is a real genuine giant at 7'2". Beyond that, I mean, he is so strong, man. He is so strong. He's so physical. He is tough. Like he is so good that Umar Ballo is not at Arizona anymore. And he is at Indiana. Like to me, that's the reason probably why Umar Ballo is not at is not at Arizona. It's because Krivas was coming and Ballo had made what 3 straight or no, probably 2 straight all Pac-12 teams, right? I think Krivas is going to come in this year and just be an absolute monster. I think he's like the next in line of the Arizona big position where, obviously Tommy Lloyd loves to run his offense through like that post big. I think he has just an enormous season for Arizona.
Yeah, no, I like it. That's a really interesting big, and with him getting his chance this year makes it even more intriguing. I like that pick. That was nice.
Okay, you are up at 28.
Oh man, where do I want to go? I'm gonna go back to my old favorite, the Atlantic 10, with another name that I don't think is on people's radars right now. This one from St. Joe's. I think this kid's going to be a double machine in the A10 this year. And if the shooting comes around or the offensive skill comes around at all, it's going to really pop. So I'm going to go Rasheer Fleming at St. Joseph's. 20 years old, turns 21, not until July. Took 3 threes a game last year, 32%. This is kind of the opposite in terms of the free throw percentage, but he averaged 2.5 offensive rebounds. I think he has real defensive potential. And in general, I just wanted to give the A10 a shout out. Obviously, Deron Holmes last year. I think Rasheer is a very good player. There's a kid at Loyola Chicago who I think could really pop. They have a big guy named Miles Rubin that I think could be really good, has real defensive. And that's just a really good conference that I'm kind of using Rasheer to give love to the conference as a whole.
Yeah, I mean, look, he has a lot of talent, obviously. Like anytime I watch Rasheer Fleming, I'm just like, it just feels like there's something missing.
Sure.
Right?
Got to put it together.
Yeah, like has to put it together because obviously you can see 6'9", incredibly long. Like,
yes, plus.
I don't know what his
it's
wingspan is, but it is like if you told me it's like 7'3", 7'4", I'd be like, okay, I believe it. 11 points, 7.5 rebounds per game. Great finisher around the basket. Willing to shoot threes. If he shoots threes this year, like he's a real look. Like, I'm a little bit surprised, but I can't sit here and tell you that this doesn't happen. Like
yeah, I mean,
he's as gifted as you're gonna find.
Yeah. Also, like it gave me a chance to talk about St. Joe's because one of my old assistant coach, his son Austin, committed to St. Joe's. So like I just have I have a lot of St. Joe's love right now. I also like Eric Reynolds there. Like I don't know where I stand on him as a draft prospect right now, but that's an interesting team.
The crazy thing is they have 3 like draft prospects. They should be a top 25 team by the end of the year at some point.
They're going to be
good. 3
3
real NBA draft prospects. They have Eric Reynolds, they have Rasheer Fleming, and they have Xavier Brown, the freshman guard that was there last year, who is awesome and knocks down shots from distance and can really pass it. Like he's a perfect like smaller guard complement next to Eric Reynolds. Like Billy Lang, if you do not win games this year, like you should be concerned for your job. You have all of the talent you need to win games this year.
Yep.
Okay. I'm going to go Ian Jackson and finish this out.
Okay.
We probably left it too long for Ian Jackson. When I watch Ian Jackson, I just think that, man, just like classic New York guard, like aggressive, physical, strong, power, like plays that kind of like attacking, relentless style, defends at a high level. He's got, again, like a really good spot for him at North Carolina because they'll push tempo. Like they'll have no problem with him grabbing the glass and like really pushing and being competitive and doing all of the things that, you ask for from like kind of an energy guard. I'm fascinated with the role for him. I think Drake Powell's role is almost like a little bit easier to slot into place just because UNC obviously still has like RJ Davis and Elliot Cadeau. Like, what does that look like this year for Ian Jackson? Like Ian Jackson, it might make more sense for him to be like the sixth man on that team, or maybe it's Cadeau. Like, who knows what they're going to do when they come out, because they just have a lot of bodies on the perimeter. But I do think it's a little bit easier to slot Powell into a role than it is to slot Ian Jackson, if only because Jackson is more of a guy where it's like, I'm attacking, I'm getting downhill, I'm like trying to get all the way to the basket. And I do think Jackson plays a little bit better with the ball in his hands.
Yeah, no, it'll be interesting to see what his role ends up being there. He's a player that I haven't got quite as much into as some of these other guys. So, obviously North Carolina is a team I'll want to dive into early in the season.
Yep. Okay. You're up at 30.
What do we got left? Who do we got to give some love to here? Who do you have? I won't necessarily take who, but like, who are your top guys left?
Yeah. So Jalen Lowe at Pitt, Boogie Fland, Noah Singay, Momcilovic. Mackenzie Mbako is, I'm still kind of interested. I thought he closed the year really well last year.
Yeah.
Freshman wise, some people really like Will Riley. I didn't love him at Hoop Summit. Let's see, like Derek Queen at Maryland, obviously, you can, if you like passing bigs, like that's a name that will certainly bring some excitement to people. Joseph Sanan, Carter Knox, those are a couple names. Carter Bryant. I would say those are the ones that people bring up as, maybe one and done kind of guys.
Yeah. So I had most of those guys here kind of on my short list of names I had left. I have a couple other like kind of surprise names that I'm interested to see how they pop. I think I will go Essengay. I mean, I know we've talked about kind of some uncertainty around him, but at like number 30, I think I'm a little more comfortable with that, especially considering he's still 17 years old, doesn't turn 18 for 2 more months. And I've seen some things that I've liked as a wing forward there for, playing with Seraph, so true off the ball player. He has to be really good at all those off the ball things and then provide value defensively. I did think one of the games I watched, he made some big plays late in the game, including some big defensive rebounds, gets off the floor quickly, has been a good mover off the ball. So those things I'm talking about, cutting and all of that, will be interesting. Can he knock down shots or not? What are the mechanics going to look like? And what's the percentage end up being?
So you're officially going Essengay.
Yeah, 30. I think I'll go Essengay at 30. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, with me, it's just all about, I don't know what position he plays.
Yeah.
And that's been like, when I've talked to teams about him, like that's always been the question for them too, is like, what's the position here? Kind of like, what's the role? Cause he's like 6'9" with a 6'11" wingspan, according to the Basketball Without Borders measurements. So he's not a 5, but like, I don't think the shot works at all right now.
So that's what was interesting. Like whenever I first got into it, I saw like him referenced as a big a lot. And I'm like, no, like I don't see him as a 5. Like I see him as a forward.
But I think that's what he like has to be though, almost, is like a big. To me, like the way I explained it to another scout was like, it's very Pascal Siakam-y, but the pathway to Pascal Siakam is very narrow.
Yeah, sure.
And that's what worries me about him. But look, like, as you mentioned, he's been very productive so far in the German league. Like he's been pretty good.
Yeah. 10 points, 4.2 rebounds. He's made 38% of his threes. Now he's only taken 8. So like, there's not a whole lot, but he's got to the free throw line 28 times in 5. His jumper form is actually one that is like his knees almost touch when he goes into his jumper.
Yeah. The base is way too narrow. I am not
way narrow. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't like the shot mechanics at all right now.
Yeah.
I think that they are a pure, this needs to be overhauled kind of deal.
Yep.
But look, interesting player for sure. Like very well might be a first round pick.
Yeah.
This year.
And again, like as we get to third, like I don't love it. You see him some mocks, he's like in the lottery. That's not where I'm comfortable, but we get to 30 and I'm more comfortable betting on that.
All right. We went through an entire mock draft. Let me get up my thing, my little graphic here on the YouTube channel for people, and then we'll run through the entire order.
Yep.
For those of you watching and listening over on the podcast feed. So any other names that like stand out to you that I didn't mention?
So I had Knox. No, I mean, I mentioned Silas Demery earlier. We've talked Ben Hinshaw in previous episodes. Obviously, people know, like, Peyton Sanford was a guy that I talked a lot about last year, ended up going back to Iowa. Ethan Almansa. I mean, some under the radar names for me, like Aziz Bandogo and then Cameron Carr at Tennessee is like a really under the radar name that I think is interesting at Tennessee.
Cam Jones at Marquette's a guy that I mocked in July, I think. Jaron Stevenson is a name. Darian Reed. I just don't know how that Alabama situation is going to work itself out, is kind of why we didn't do anything with him. Isaiah Evans at Duke, KJ Lewis at Arizona.
So KJ. I almost took KJ at 28 after you took Krevis. I like KJ Lewis. I think KJ Lewis is good.
Yeah. Adu Tiero, Xavier Lee. There are a number of guys here that we could mention. But here's the order we went. Number 1, Cooper Flagg. Number 2, Ace Bailey. Number 3, Dylan Harper. Number 4, VJ Edgecombe. Number 5, Nolan Traore. Number 6, Common Malawak. Number 7, Ben Seraph. Number 8, Drake Powell. Number 9, Kasparis Yakashonis. Number 10, Liam McNeely. Number 11, Con Kneppel. Number 12, Yegor Demen. Number 13, Asa Newell. Number 14, Hugo Gonzalez. Number 15, Colin Murray Boyles. Number 16, Dink Pate. Number 17, Donnie Freeman. Number 18, KJ Evans. Number 19, Jaleel Bethea. Number 20, Trey Johnson. Number 21, Alex Caravan. Number 22, Hansen Yang. Number 23, Rocco Zakarski. Number 24, Hunter Salas. Number 25, Alex Tui. Number 26, St. Thomas. Number 27, Mateus Krevis. Number 28, Rashir Fleming. Number 29, Ian Jackson. Number 30, Noah Essenge. Okay. That was a mouthful.
That was good.
But we still have one segment left.
Yes, we do. Can be a little shorter, but
trivia time.
It's trivia time.
It's a quick trivia time.
Yeah. Well, we'll see how good you are. I love that I get to play this side of it because I, as you know, hate doing trivia. So, Sam, are you ready for this one?
I'm ready.
All right. This past season, 2 players averaged 1 or more steals a game, 1 or more blocks a game, and 6 or more assists per game, which has only been done 6 times since the 2000 season. And those were 2 of the 6. The games played qualifier was 50 or more. Can you give me these 6 names, including 2 from
Christ.
No, it's all big time names. I think you will definitely get 4 of the names.
Okay. Ah, man. So the first name that came to mind for me was LeBron.
LeBron did it multiple times. The one I have here is 21-22.
Okay.
So yeah, you're 1 for 1.
The second name, I don't know if Giannis ever got to 6 assists is my issue.
So are you guessing Giannis?
I'm guessing Giannis. I just don't
know. Giannis was one of the players that did it this past season, Sam. Giannis last year averaged 30.4 points, 11.5 rebounds, 6.5 assists, 1.2 steals, and 1.1 blocks. 2 for 2.
Okay. So my third guess here, staying in theme, and given that somebody did this last year, did you have a game counter on this?
50 plus.
Yeah, Scotty Barnes played 50 plus, right?
That was one of the ones I didn't think you would get. So Scotty Barnes.
When I thought more about like the Giannis LeBron archetype, it was like, okay, so Scotty makes sense here.
Yeah. So I thought this was kind of the Scotty was the motivation behind this. So he averaged just under 20 a game, 8.2 rebounds, 6.1 assists, 1.3 steals, 1.5 blocks. I did not anticipate this had been done as little. So complete transparency. I was going to start with this to get 10 names. And obviously I didn't, right? So I had to move the qualifier to 5 to get more than 10 names. And that's what I was going to do for you and Andrew. But since Andrew couldn't join us, I can move it back to the 6 and only ask you to get 6. So you've done 3. You've had Giannis, Scotty, LeBron. Here's a hint. You've got the 3 most recent names to do it.
Okay. My next, oh man, that throws me. Did Drew Holiday do this?
Drew Holiday did not do this.
Okay.
Let's look some Drew Holiday numbers up.
It has to be the block that he never got.
Blocks is he's never averaged a block a game.
Okay. Okay. So we mentioned this guy earlier, actually talking about VJ Edgecombe. I'm going to say, did Dwayne Wade do this?
Great call, Sam Vecenie. Dwayne Wade, the year I have written down is 2009, 2010, where he averaged 6.5 assists, 1.8 steal, 1.1 blocks. I'm trying to remember if Dwayne was one that did it more than once or not.
I would guess he might have. That sounds like this is a very Dwayne Wade-y kind of thing.
He did it 04, 05. Oh, yeah. Multiple seasons of this.
Yeah, this to me is like the LeBron and the Dwayne Wade stat.
Early in his so multiple seasons early in his career, and then the assists stopped hitting later in his career. So
yep, I buy that.
So you're 4 of the 6. Here I'll say 1 current player, 1 retired player.
Oh God, 1 retired player.
The retired player is one I didn't think you would get. Like the retired players, it's a like a big time name, but I don't think you immediately think this with him.
So my guess on the retired player from the jump was Gary Payton.
Gary Payton was not.
But, I mean, Gary Payton's best years were in the 90s, not the 2000s.
Yeah. And I did go back to, of course it went to his son. Come on, real GM. Senior? What do I have to put to get the right one? There we go. Peyton actually surprisingly never blocked shots.
Yeah, interesting. Okay.
You very much should be able to get the current play, the player that's
the current player
that's still in the NBA. Like this is very much his stat. Steals, blocks, assists.
I mean, Jokic would make sense.
Nikola Jokic not on this list. Think
Jokic's had a couple of years where he's gotten to a block.
Has not got to a block in his career. 0.9
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because last time we did the one.
Yeah.
I know that he was under 1 last year. I thought that he'd gotten.
So the current player,
he's always over a steal, though.
Yeah. The current player I'm talking about did it 4 years in a row.
Oh God.
Has done it another time since.
Okay, 4 years in a row has to be an all NBA player then, I would guess. Yeah, I mean, Paul George doesn't average those kind of assists. This is his metric, you say?
No. Well, I'm just saying, like, I think when you think of it, you'll be like, oh yeah, that really makes sense. This is a guy that's made multiple all defensive teams, but also is kind of known for like his processing and
Draymond.
Yep.
Yeah.
Draymond Green.
That makes sense.
The year I had here, the most he averaged 7.4 points was the highest number of the big 5 stats, but 6.9 assists, 1.4 steals, 1.1 block.
The guy that I think I would pick to do this year is Shea, for what it's worth.
So Shea wasn't going to be on the list. But he would have when we changed the qualifiers to 5 assists.
Yeah.
And then, okay. I'll give you those names after you're done.
Yeah. So
early 2000s
retired in like all NBA, or
let me give you like, without giving
Kirilenko was a guess.
That's a good guess.
But I don't think he averaged the assists.
So this player won a championship. He was the most valuable player, was a defensive player of the year, multiple.
Did you say he won an MVP?
Yep. Won a defensive player of the year in a different season, multiple all NBA teams, multiple NBA, defensive teams.
Okay. Early 2000s, this guy won an MVP. Maybe not in the early 2000s, but he has won an MVP previously.
It was in the early to mid 2000s.
Okay.
Karolinko never got the assists.
Yeah. And look up Sean Marion, because before you did the MVP guess, that was going to be my next guess.
Yeah.
Oh wow. So
Marion never had the assists either. Multiple years of the steals and blocks though.
So like, did Kobe do this?
Kobe did not. I'll look it up. Here's what this player is hard because I think you would guess. I don't think you'll guess.
Oh, I might have it.
Okay.
Kevin Garnett.
Kevin Garnett. See, I wouldn't have probably ever guessed him because I wouldn't have guessed the assists. But obviously did this. So Kobe, where did he get? So his first season was 6 assists. He didn't get the blocks. He never got the blocks. Well, he never averaged. Yeah.
2 out of 3 a couple of times, it sounds like.
Yep. So the names of guys that were 5 assists. One player did it last year. Any quick guesses?
I would have said Shea is the one who did it last year.
He did not last year. He did the year before. So Derek White did it last year with 5 assists.
Yeah, that's a good name. Yeah.
Shea did it 2 years ago. Bam Adebayo did this in 2019, 2020 with 5 assists. Kevin Durant, Joakim Noah did this.
That makes sense.
Chris Webber,
Tracy
McGrady.
Surprised about that one.
Yep. And then Lamar Odom.
Okay. Not as surprised about Odom. Did Marion never get the assists, I would guess, to get to 5?
Yeah, correct. He didn't. So the original question was going to be since 2000-2001 season, 5 assists, 1 steal, 1 block, 50 plus games. There were 14 names, and I was just going to ask you guys to try to get 10. So that way, like, I assume you never would have got Tracy McGrady, but it would have been okay.
I think I would have gotten McGrady. Yeah.
So, and I was
trying to think, like, you probably could have given a couple of hints that would have pointed me there at some point, but like, I don't think I ever.
I was going. So what my plan was 10 names, and I was going to give 2 points instead of 1 if you guessed the person that had the people that had 6 assists. So I was going to put some qualifiers in there because getting all of those names would have been tough.
That would have been very difficult for Andrew and I. But luckily, the Mets are playing right now. So, and the Knicks are playing. So Andrew has like 45 things happening in his life. Shout out to GMAC.
Sam, you did well on that one. I feel like we got there fairly quickly.
I feel okay about where we ended up on that one. It took me like 8 minutes, I think, for us to like really think through it.
That was good. Very good.
Okay. Bryce, tell the people where they can find your work. Tell the people what's going on.
Yeah, at Motor City Hoops on Twitter. Start following over there. If you're not, I'll start to pump out real content. I did a little breakdown of notes from the Celtics Nuggets first game, the first preseason game over in Abu Dhabi. As soon as I'm done with this, I'll eat supper, kiss my kids goodnight, and then watch this Pistons and Bucks game. I'll have notes on that. It's on Substack, but if you follow me on Twitter, you can find all of it and more NBA draft stuff. Otherwise, Game Theory Podcast with Sam Vecenie right here.
Love it. Go to The Athletic. Keep me employed. I will have a predictive mock draft up there later this week. Go to the Game Theory social media channels. Game Theory, Sam V, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, wherever you get your social media needs. Andrew's pumping out content over there. Go follow all of those things. Go hit the subscribe button over on the YouTube channel, Game Theory Podcast with Sam Vecenie. Hit the subscribe button on any platform that you guys use to listen to podcasts. We will be back later this week with one of 2 ideas I have. I'm not sure which one it's going to be yet. We will see. But we're closing in. We're closing in on 3 podcasts a week potentially at some point here. But not quite there yet while we're in the preseason. I will also have a couple videos that go up on the YouTube channel breaking down prospects. I might try and do a couple of NBA ones for rookies that are playing their first games. We shall see there. But until next time, we'll talk soon.